Okay, so in class today, we did something where we used our calculator to find out the line of best fit in an equation for a set of data. So I wanted to show you that again because I know sometimes it's hard when you're looking up and looking down. So I thought I would record this so you could kind of see what's happening. So let's imagine that we have a set of data right here. So it's a series of values. I actually got it off of an equation that I created. So let's just see how good this is if I tried to model it as a line. So one of the things we talked about in class is it's always good to start with sort of a clean room. So notice when I hit my y equals, everything is kind of empty. I kind of would like to take a look at what it looks like later on. So I might turn these plots on right here, this plot one, but I'm going to go to Stat, Edit, and you'll notice that I have a whole bunch of data in there. So what I personally like to do is I have to go up to the top and I hit the clear button right here to make that extra data go away, and I hit enter. And now that list is still there, but it has been cleared. So there we go. And so I have a series of values. Now it's very, very important that as you go through this series of values, you make sure that you keep your list the same length. So I want to make sure that I type these in very carefully. So imagine this is a simple set of data, 1.41. Let's try that again, 2.83. I've got 4.47. Got 5.099, 6.40, and 8.602. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is I need to go to Stat, I go to Edit, and I make sure all my data is in my equation. Now, I personally like to look at it just to get a feel before the problem ever even begins how good the line is. This is completely optional. You don't need to do that, but if you would like to look at it, if you go to y equals, and you go up, you can turn your plots on. Then if you hit zoom 9 automatically resizes the screen. Zoom 9 resizes the screen to fit the data that I put into there. Now, I think by looking at it, you can kind of tell that I had some kind of a function that's sort of coming up here like this, and I think you might recognize what that looks like. I actually modeled it based on the square root function because I wanted it to look kind of like a line, but not very good. So let's just see how good of a line that is. So again, I did not need to look at this, but I thought it might be helpful. Now what I can do is if I quit from here, I want to now find that line. So I hit Stat first. I go one line over to Calculate. That was Stat Calculate number 4. Now my calculator says that the slope of my line is 0.824, so that was y equals 0.284x. So it's telling me my slope of my line is 0.284x, and it looks like my y-intercept is 2.002. And it tells me my correlation coefficient R was 0.973. Now, this actually indicates it is a very good form of a line. Very good approximation. And it's a very good approximation because it actually is very, very close to the number +1. It's a very good approximation. It's close to 1. It's a really, really nice deal. Now, I could actually take a look at it by just coming over here and I could type the equation, 0.284x plus 2.002. And if I graph that, I would then see the line coming right over the top of those points, and I could actually see that, you know, that really wasn't that bad. You could tell the curve of the line appears to be trying to curve this way, but at least in the limited window that I have, a line is not a terrible representation because there's a few points above and a few points below, but this does split it fairly well. Now, the nice thing about that is if I wanted to use the line to predict, let's say, hey, where should the graph have been at, say, 18? I could actually I could hit trace 18, trace, I need to hit up, I guess, 18, and it'll jump to, oh, according to the line, it should have been 7.114. Or if I hit trace, now notice when I hit trace, it immediately jumped to the scat plot. So if I go down, it jumps to Y1, which is my new line. Notice I don't have any data in here anywhere. So what would happen if I said, hey, line, tell me what happens around the number 5? And it says, oh, at 5, you should have been somewhere around 3.422. Now, one of the things that I thought I would show you is what would happen if you accidentally ever, instead of clearing one of your things, you accidentally deleted it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick. So stat, edit, I look at all this stuff and I'm like, oh, I don't want any of that stuff, and I hit clear. So do you notice how my L2 is gone? There is no L2, and in fact, I can't even get it back. It's just not there. So if that ever happens to you, here's your workaround. You hit the stat button, and number 5 is the setup editor. And the setup editor just kind of puts everything back to where it should have been. So if I hit stat edit again, notice my L2 came home. So that's one really, really nice thing that you can do if you ever messed up. Second, let's say you're working along and your correlation coefficient is not there because somebody turned it off. Actually, interestingly enough, the calculator's default is to have the correlation coefficient not show. So if you ever have your correlation coefficient not showing, what you do is you go in here to the catalog and you hit the letter D, which is right here on my calculator. I saw one earlier today that was in a different place. It jumps you across a bunch of things, and if you turn your diagnostic on, it will show your correlation coefficient. If you don't want to see all that information, you could do diagnostic off and it will turn that off. But I like to have it on, and so now if I ever do a stat calc linreg, now when it does my regression, it's going to actually show me my R value. And so that gives you a couple little ideas. I hope that was helpful. You can let me know if you need any kind of help of any kind, and I'd be happy to help you. All right, have a great day. Bye.